Next is a Texan. Every good pre-lunch session has a Texan. He doesn't have his hat, but he's going to talk about a very important subject, security and risk. His title, Chief Risk Officer for Layered Tech. Again, wonderful and generous sponsor of our evening event. Without further ado, bring him up. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you very much, Andy. Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you. So I'm going to talk about a few things. First of all, I'm going to talk about myself because I am from Texas. And second of all, I want to make sure we go at 11 I stop, Andy, just to confirm? Okay, good, thanks. So I am the Chief Risk Officer at Layered Technologies, and that's a title. How many people here have that title in their companies? Okay, see, once again, I'm unique. And I know no one in the room has that title, obviously, or the answer would have been yes. And you may wonder what that means. We are a secure and compliant hosting and cloud provider. And I'm not here to tell you what you should buy or that you need to buy it from us. I'm going to give you some reasons why I think you'd think it makes sense. But I'm going to talk more about why you aren't buying cloud and what we can do to address some of those issues. So this is the sales slide. This talks about what we do at Layered Tech. We have and hold pioneering leadership in compliant and secure hosting and cloud. We were the first hosting company, pardon me, to achieve PCI compliance back in 2005. We offer compliance services with security in PCI, HIPAA, FISMA environments, and others as well, whatever standard you might happen to meet, at least within the US. We don't cover all international standards everywhere yet. We have different types of offering tiered managed services from basic up to full managed, completely, as in most, if not all, of an IT department might be outsourced to us. And we do the whole range within there. Our focus and our value is high touch and process driven. And we do have a global reach. We do have footprints around the world, although we are basically right now a domestic company here in the US. And what's flying in on the bottom here, which you may not be able to see very well, what we do is offer the first and only industry compliance guarantee, meaning that if you host your compliant and security needs with us, we guarantee you'll pass every compliant audit you're subject to, period. There's no exclusions on that compliance, other than some specific activity you may take to be in violation of it yourself. But beyond that, we guarantee you'll pass every compliance audit. So that's, I think, one of the major compelling reasons why we feel we have a unique offering. So the question I have here is, who's afraid of the big cloud? I may have, nope, I didn't, sorry. So I think I may have done something to upset them. Oh, I'm glad we have the sound connected as well, thank you. So this, there's two reasons I'm doing this. I'll stop the sound. First of all, one, it's getting near lunch. I get that, and we needed to wake you up a bit. But I wanted to make sure that you're aware, and most of you probably were, that up until recently, most large organizations felt that way about the cloud. It was a big bad thing. It was going to get you in trouble. And I've spent time looking into why that is. And to give you a bit more about myself, my background is my degree is actually in astrophysics. And I made the logical progression after school to get into law enforcement, which I think most people would feel would be the next logical step for that career. And although I was successful in that, I was also had an affinity which was required because of what I did in school for computers. So back in the 70s, I decided to get into the computer security field, and it's kind of grown since then into a bigger risk management perspective. And I've started the security programs at Arc Oil and Gas Company, at Dell Computers, and at CheckFree, which is now part of Fiserv, and a couple other financial services organizations. And I also started the information security program at Rackspace. And this actually, where I am at Layered Tech, I've been here almost 2 years, is the only company since 1980 where I've come in and there wasn't a program, and there was a program in place already. And that's how good I felt about what the program offering was, because it is a core competency of what Layered Tech offers. And I think if you look at how you manage risk appropriately, rather than looking at the cloud this way, it should be coming in more like this. And I think there's a sound effect on this too. but we're not going to hear it, and that's okay. If you can imagine a nice spring day like today where birds are chirping and it's a blue sky, pretty much like what you see outside today, that's what the cloud should be for you. So let's get into why. All right, so I'm going to require a bit of participation. Pretty easy question, so. Who here uses a cloud? Just raise your hand. Okay, so not everyone raise their hands, which means one of two things. Either you're not paying attention to what you're doing or you're not paying attention to me, and I'm okay with that. So how many people here, and you've already heard the question, have a smart device, whether it's a tablet or iPhone, Android? Okay, for everyone that raised their hand then and didn't raise their hand when they said, are you using the cloud? This is time to start paying attention. You are using the cloud. If you have a smart device and you use it connected in any way and you get data from the internet, most if not all of that is in the cloud. So we're going to talk about what cloud might mean. I'm not going to get into the true definition, although I tend to like the NIST definition of cloud computing because it's easy to identify and it's easy to follow. I'm not going to get deeply into that, though. I'd like two examples. What's the best thing about the cloud? We've heard some good examples already this morning. What's the best thing about using the cloud? Anyone? Someone else is managing. All right, that's good. All right, one more example. What's another great thing about the cloud? Yes. Pardon? The cloud is elastic. That's actually one of the 5 essential characteristics of cloud, according to this. So yeah, good. Those 2 good examples. What scares you most about the cloud? I want 2 examples of that as well. Someone else is managing it. Very good. All right, I like that. But you're not going to be able to use elastic. So I need one more example of what else scares you about the cloud. This is kind of a leading question. Think about what I do. Security, yes. Actually, and the good news is that we are progressing. You know, I asked these questions about cloud computing because I'm a founding member of the Cloud Security Alliance. I worked not at NIST, but with NIST for that definition. So I've been in cloud for a while. And early on, first of all, no one would ever use a cloud. And when I asked and here's a couple of things that changed. 2 years ago, the answer to the first question was cost. Everyone said the cloud is good because it costs less. And as you've heard a couple people say, yeah, it doesn't. All right, but you can better spend your money and be more effective, but it doesn't necessarily cost less. And also, 2 years ago, the biggest concern, without question, was security always came up as the #1 answer as to why I'm afraid of the cloud or why I don't want to use it. So we are going to look at some of the things. You came up with some good examples that make cloud difficult to use. And you actually, if you're new to using cloud, and I've done some work with Fortune 500 companies, taking a look at how and why they're using the cloud, these are some of the things that get in their way. Right? And it gets kind of jumbled because one leads to the other, and then you can't even tell which problem you're trying to deal with. So the best way to address that is one at a time. Take each one of those issues that you see is a reason why you should be scared about the cloud and look at them one at a time. I'm not going to give you full examples for everything, but I'll give you at least a bullet for each one of those items that you see up there and indicate why you should be able to feel comfortable using the cloud, and by the way, why you should be able to say no to a lot of cloud providers. And the reason you need to be able to do that is that many cloud providers, especially the very, very large ones, without using any particular names, will say, here's how you can use the cloud that we offer. And if you don't like that, here's how you can use the cloud that we offer. Any options? No. Any questions? No, just sign here. And even though there can be a lot of success in there, sometimes you need a lot more flexibility, whether it's an SLA or remedies for certain types of incidents, or specifically how you want to have the arrangement with a cloud service provider. Don't be afraid to have your attorney use the red pen on your contract. And if the cloud provider won't do that, go find one that will. Because very often, the first thing you're going to talk about in there are your service levels. And this gets to what I like about the cloud is someone else is managing, but what I don't like about the cloud is someone else is managing it, and I really can't. It's hard to define service levels. Was it my fault? Was it the provider's fault? Was it the internet's fault? And how do we address that? Control. This gets back to someone else is managing it, but someone else is managing it. So if I have applications and systems and I want to tweak them a certain way, do I have to ask someone else to do it for me? If they don't understand what I want, is it going to work correctly? all those sort of things. By the way, these are all questions that are not hard, but I find more often than not, a lot of cloud prospects and customers don't bother answering these questions and then get upset when they find out what the answer is by default. But you can determine what the answer are for all of these. And there is one down the bottom that I think says performance. It doesn't, not very visible here. You need to be able to say, here's the performance level I need, and your cloud provider should be able to say, here's what I'm going to do to be able to meet that. It is not always one size fits all. Availability. How many people think the cloud is unreliable and not available very often? Right. Most people think it's not a problem, but the issue is you still need to say what your expectations are because it all still runs on hardware using software. So things will break, and you need to be able to say, here's exactly what I need, and here's what I'm willing to pay for it. Security. Okay, so this is kind of what I'm talking about here. A lot of people would say, I'm not putting my data in the cloud because I can't trust where it is or who's going to see it or if it's really going to be secure. There is no reason that data in the cloud cannot be secure at all. Now, that doesn't mean go get a $7.99 a month public cloud offering and put some data out there and expect that it's never going to be disclosed and there's never going to be any issues around it. You're going to get what you pay for. But once again, if the cloud provider you're dealing with can't say to you, yes, here's a level of security that we will assure exists at all times with you, if that's your need, then go find another provider. If they won't do it, walk away. And related to security is compliance. Chances are everyone in this room has some level of compliance they need to meet, whether it's SEC or HIPAA or FISMA or PCI or Sarbanes-Oxley, or there's a whole laundry list of those. Make sure that your cloud provider can either get you to that compliance level or at a minimum enable you to be able to do that. And the last one down there is portability. If you had to circle one that's most important going forward, that would be it. If you are running in a cloud, whether it's an application you have or something else you're doing, and you're happy with your cloud provider, don't assume that, number one, either your cloud provider is going to be there forever or that you're going to be happy with them forever. And when the day comes that you have to leave, you do not want to have to re-architect everything you do. You don't want to have to port your data out and reformat it and come up with a way to import it to another application and see what functionality you lose. You want to make sure that your data at a minimum and your applications hopefully are going to be portable to another provider. All this is doable, by the way. And I'm going to have a list here that's going to build of the sort of things, and I know this is going to be made available as well, because I see some people taking notes. You should be able to demand that your cloud provider does all of these things. Now, not coincidentally, this happens to be a list of what we consider our differentiators at Layer Tech. And this is not necessarily a sales pitch, although we do have Shane here who would be happy to sell you any services you want right now, and I'll be happy to back him up on that. But you should be able to, if you need a secure compliant environment or you have control issues, you should be able to demand all of this from your provider. And at the bottom right now, if you're going to demand that very last thing, obviously you're going to be talking to Layer Tech because we are the only ones that do that. I'm going to go over one more slide real quickly, then I'm just about at the end. This is a slide that I have been using in presentations for about 20 years. The only thing that's changed is some of the graphics. I can build a better slide in PowerPoint now than what I did. I actually used building foils when I started this. And it hasn't changed. And if you've been to any management school, this is Management 101. This is not different than anything new. But I'm here to remind you, this is all it takes. Dealing with the risk associated with cloud computing is as simple as this. Over on the right is you out on a limb on the tree of FUD. FUD stands for fear, uncertainty, and doubt, which, by the way, I've been slogging through my entire career. It's how a lot of people think they're going to make their careers, but they eventually realize it doesn't work. So you have people trying to sell you controls over on the right-hand side so that you are scared enough to turn on every single control, close down every port on your firewall, don't allow anyone access to anything, and you're going to be very secure. Now, if you do that, the cost of the potential impact of a loss will approach zero, which is great. From a risk perspective, that looks pretty good until you recognize that as you put more of those controls in, the complexity increases, the cost increases, And the cost of those controls eventually spirals completely out of control, even though you have complete control and no one can do anything in your environment. And what you always want to be able to do is ensure that you're never spending more for the controls that you're putting in place or buying than you would have lost if the data were compromised or lost, or the problem that you're trying to prevent actually happened. And if you can't answer, gee, what would that cost be? Your problem isn't cloud computing. And I find this very often with a lot of prospects. They say, I don't want to be able to lose anything. Well, what's it worth to you? Well, a lot, okay? Can you be a little more definitive than a lot? And, you know, more than many, less than infinity, somewhere in there, I get that. But if you can't really define what your business is worth and what different components of data or applications are worth to you, then before you go to the cloud, you don't know really what you're paying for. So the level of control, the level of risk that you're managing is going to be unknown to you because you don't know what that sweet spot is in the middle. If you base all of your risk-based decisions on acquiring cloud computing on this, you won't go wrong, I promise. And you'll be able to soar through the cloud. I had to put the last corny one in there, and I'll leave you with my contact information up there. Always open to any sort of email, reach out, Twitter, phone, whatever, and I really like engaging, talking about this at any level. So thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeff. One question quick, in case you guys have some too, and then we'll give them a big round of applause. Of those Fortune 1000 firms that don't have that specific answer for what's the cost and the, of my downtime, is it just that they don't know and someone else in the company does and they don't know who that person is? Or do you truly think that there are Fortune 1000s out there that have not even gone through the exercise at some part of the company?
Oh, no, there's definitely a mix of both. There are certain, the larger the company, the greater the chance of someone or maybe a couple disparate people may have the right answer combined, but haven't gotten together to do that or communicated it. But more often than not, especially if it's a legacy application, no one really defined it because it kind of grew up, it grew with the company, or it came with an acquisition. There's another good way to really throw in the, I don't really know what it's worth to me. And I think there's more of that now than there is the data are really out there and they just aren't talking to the right person.
Gotcha. Any other questions? All right. Well, Jeff,
All right.
thank you so very much. Great job. Videos. Thank you for being a part of the inaugural BigCloud event in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We'll see you next year in March. To all of you, thank you. To our sponsors, thank you very much. Have a great night, everyone.